morning, everyone, and welcome back to Wake and Take. It's your boy Jason, and we've got some football to talk about today. And today, you guys get a break from me yapping as I'm joined by my friend Faraz Siddiqi from UPPERHAND Fantasy. You've seen him all over the place. He's one of the kings of Instagram fantasy football. Great stuff coming up on this show. So go ahead, take out your coffee, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Faraz, how's it going, man?
Hey, man, what's up? How's it going? I already had my 2 cups of coffee, so I'm ready to go. I would have had another cup with me right now, but I feel like I'll be overdoing it just a little bit. You know what I mean? So like I after the show, though, I might make another cup. You know what I'm saying?
Can you overdo it? Can you really overdo it if it's
No, not really, to be honest with you. Not really. Not for me. I mean, I can have like 8 cups and I'll be perfectly fine. And also sleep like a baby too. You know what I'm saying? So
what a lucky man. Do you take it black or what do you do?
Yes, I do. I do. I also take my coffee black as well.
Very New York of you. Very New York of you for us.
Sorry. It was right there. I had to. So I'm sorry.
Man, if only I was Podfather, I could have had a nice sound effect there. Oh well. But thanks for joining me, man. I'm excited to have you on. Not just to talk fantasy football, but it's been a minute. We got to, hang out a little bit at the Senior Bowl, met each other for the first time, had a great time playing some Top Golf, and then get some fantasy football stuff in, of course, as well. And now we get to talk about kind of what we've been doing all off season. But before we get into that, we have some big news that happened this week that I just want to get your takes on real quick. Minnesota Vikings, they're a dumpster fire right now. It sucks to be a Minnesota Vikings fan right now. JJ McCarthy is out for the season. So we're going to do a rapid fire buy sell. JJ McCarthy and Dynasty.
Screaming buy.
Yes. Easy. Okay. Justin Jefferson redraft.
At his price, yes. late first round buy.
Okay.
Early to mid first round sell.
Okay. So like you want him like 1.7? Probably
no,
where you're looking at.
Later than that.
Later
1.9, 1.10.
You're not worried about like a 40% target share burning you?
That's not going to happen. That never happens. It's going to be 30% no matter what, and the target quality is going to be shit. That's my problem.
So, speaking of shit targets, are you taking the risk for Sam Darnold in Superflex, or are you just going to let it be?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think in that system, he'll be fine. Do I think that he's going to end up being, having a turnaround like Geno or Baker? Maybe. I mean, like, let's see. AOC has a lot on his hands right here. This is a huge project for him. Yeah. We'll see. But yeah, definitely 1,000% should be a startable option as your QB2.
Okay. Let's say in Dynasty, would you go as far as to throw a second his way? Or are you trying to maybe just swap a player or something? If I really need that QB2, I'm willing to trade a second for him. Yeah, I am.
That's about a 20-25 second. Yeah, I would say so.
Okay, so I think we're about step for step. I'll take the risk on Justin Jefferson a little bit earlier than you. I'll do like the 1.6. I'll still, believe it or not, I'm still going to be taking him over Tyreek Hill right now, which I know is
my God.
I know. But I won't let you make fun of me for it. We're going to move on. So we're in the midst of preseason right now. We've got training camp too that I'll let you kind of throw into this. But we need to know who's been your biggest winner so far the last few weeks.
Oh man, Malik Neighbors has looked so good. I want to name a bunch of players, but I think one one guy who's been pretty obvious for me is Javonte Williams. Okay. Obviously, going into last year, tearing all of those different ligaments, it's not what you want, right? And obviously, we rightfully faded him in 2023 because of that injury. Like I usually wouldn't fade like a clean ACL tear, like Jonathan Brooks coming in this year, like totally fine drafting him, especially at his price. But the injury that Javonte had was way more severe. But going into this season, he's 1 year removed from that. Sean Payton has said he looked like a completely different player. We saw the usage in this last preseason game. We saw him break some tackles. Like we saw what the old Javonte might look like here, right? So in the old Javonte, I feel like people have short memories here, like short-term memories. He was a good running back. You know what I'm saying? And, I feel like with all the volume in a Sean Payton offense, like we've seen, like, listen, like there is no system that is better for running backs for fantasy than Sean Payton's system. Like there is zero. So I'm going to be chasing that, especially at his price right now. So I think he's had a good camp. All the reports out of camp saying that he is the guy, and he's been looking good. So I think Javonte, his price might move up a little bit because of it, but I think people are still a little skeptical, which I'm happy about because I can grab him late.
Yeah, I mean, he's going right now on underdog, believe it or not, RB32. I mean, for a presumed RB1 in that offense, that's a pretty good bargain, especially from what we saw from him his rookie season before the injury. 900 rush yards, 300 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns, 22nd in points per game. Pretty great year from him on top of just being really, really good at breaking tackles, like you mentioned in the preseason. I will ask you this. Behind Javonte Williams, this is not on the show sheet, of course, but who's the guy that you're taking? Because Audric Estime, Jaleel McLaughlin, Blake Watson, everyone has a guy. What about you?
For me personally, like, if you're going for somebody who you can maybe plug in, here and there, like Jaleel McLaughlin, like is probably the guy that I would go after. But I think like the true handcuff to Javonte, is probably the rookie. Right. Like, and I think Audric Estime is a good running back. I was a little bit higher on Estime than most. I think when you look at his career numbers in terms of missed tackles forced per attempt, yards after contact per attempt, he was actually pretty good. And he's a little bit of an underrated receiver as well. So I think Sean Payton kind of alluded to that a little bit. He did talk about him being an early down back, but in this offense, the early down back is running a lot of routes on early downs. So I think Estime is the one-to-one handcuff. Is it possible that McLaughlin like gets a little bit of a bump in opportunity if Javonte were to get hurt? I think so. And I think he could get some opportunity alongside Javonte. We've seen multiple backs do their thing in this offense for like 15 years now. So, if you're looking for somebody who can potentially, give you like, 10 PPR fantasy points on like a good day, McLaughlin is that guy. But me personally, I'm probably going with the handcuff, early down handcuff, and just stashing him.
Yeah, I like that take. I haven't really got my head around the Broncos backfield quite yet, as it's just there's been so many conflicting reports all over the place. But I mean, Estime to Javonte Williams is fairly similar. They're 5'10", 5'11", both over 210 pounds, both not very quick and straight line speed, but both have really good burst and strength. So it does kind of make sense to be 1-for-1. With Jaleel McLaughlin kind of figuring in as a little bit of an explosive back to catch some passes, maybe some stretches and stuff like that. So I think that's a good way to look at this offense, Faraz. You should do this fantasy football stuff for a living.
Yeah, man. That's what I like to do, man. I like to wake and take. You know what I'm saying? That's what I like to do.
You're good at this. You're good at this. Who else are you coming out of this first week of preseason or training camp kind of getting excited about?
I think Malik Neighbors is the obvious name. We've seen like a ton of videos, but I think one and we've seen the ADP slowly creep up a little bit is Cooper Kupp, right? And there's been a lot of reports around Cooper Kupp, being the primary target and the offense kind of revolving around him. And that's what we've seen, what we've traditionally seen over the last couple of seasons. Obviously, he was banged up going into last year. He had that nagging injury, throughout the season, and getting banged up. And he is getting older, right? So there is a little bit of risk here, right? So when you're looking at him in the third round, and you're looking at him, Devontae Smith, DK Metcalf, and that tier of wide receivers, you're like, man, this is a tough choice, right? Because all those guys can have big years. But I can understand, the upside here while Matt Stafford is healthy, in this system. I think Cooper Kupp, as long as he stays healthy, he has top 12 upside. And then, more realistically, maybe top 15. So I think he's a solid pick there. And because he stayed healthy throughout training camp, and the fact that, he's hopefully, crossing my fingers, not going to win at the same time, going into the season healthy, I think, you're going to be able to, he's going to be close to a must start. You know what I'm saying? So like, if you can get that must start player, in that tier and, with a little bit more upside, I think you kind of have to go for it, man. There's no doubt there's a little risk because of the age, and Puka Nacua obviously being there as well. Both those guys are going to eat, but I think I'm willing to take the chance.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp has been one of my biggest buys this offseason. I'm a little upset that Puka Nacua got hurt and kind of caused this to not really be even a hot take anymore, because I had 40% Cooper Kupp exposure on underdog up until a couple weeks ago. I kept pressing that button. Because you look at it last year, Cooper Kupp was still top 10 in red zone targets despite missing those 4 games amongst all wide receivers, and actually had more games than Puka Nacua with 10 or more targets when they were both out there. So clearly the Rams still very much like Cooper Kupp, and his play style is one that ages gracefully. I mean, we saw Larry Fitzgerald playing 3-4 more years than where Cooper Kupp's at right now. So I like that take. They can both Nacua, both Cooper Kupp.
Oh yeah.
15. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it's just the offense runs through those two. There'll be some room for that Jordan Whittington hype, but I want some Cooper Kupp at its cost right now.
Nah.
You don't want any Whittington?
No, I'm good, man. There's a reason why Puka was Puka, right? You look back at his efficiency metrics and all that kind of stuff. It makes sense, right? 1 + 1 = 2. But Whittington, like, I'm good.
Not even like end
0%.
of bench.
0%.
Okay. I don't mind that. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I had 0% up until that preseason.
Listen, if you have a huge bench, right? Like 25 to 30 man rosters, whatever. Like, I get it. Like, sure, whatever. End of your bench, you never know. Because Sean McVay has been hyping him up a little bit, but
yeah. I mean, it's gonna take an injury for him to hit the lineup, but he looked pretty good against backups.
Yes, he did.
Okay, so then we've got a couple winners. Who's been a big loser for you? Like, who are you mad at right now?
Oh man, who is a loser? I would say Zach Moss, maybe.
Okay.
We obviously, we went into camp. Not we. A lot of people, and I wasn't sure what to make of this, to be honest with you. So I kind of was like, I had a neutral stance. I wasn't like pro Zach Moss. I wasn't pro Chase Brown. I think both guys are like, Jags personally. But it was one of those situations where you go into training camp. I think the majority of people, and I'm taking this because of the market price, had Zach Moss as the 1A at the very least, right? And then a lot of beat reporters coming out and saying that Chase Brown has been getting most of the first team reps. So Zach Moss's ADP has been going down a little bit. Chase Brown's ADP has been going up a little bit. And it still kind of remains to be seen, right? And this past preseason, preseason game 1, Zach Moss wasn't available to play. And then Chase Brown, got every single snap with Joe Burrow. And you're like, all right, well, what can I make of this, right? Like, nothing. Like, you can't even take anything out of it because Chase Brown's obviously either the 1 or the 2. So because Zach Moss was out, it was hard to tell, what the situation was. But because of the fact that there's been a lot of reports talking about, Chase Brown being the primary back, maybe the 1A here, I think Moss suffers just a little bit. I still don't know what to make of that situation. I'm personally avoiding. If I can get Chase Brown late, like, I'm perfectly fine with that because I think there is a little bit of upside. It's going to be a good offense. Maybe he ends up being the early down back, the goal line back potentially. Like, one thing that confuses me is like why people think Chase Brown is like a small back or whatever. Like, he's like he had so many carries. You know what I'm saying? Like, in college, like he was able to carry like a whole team on his back, right? So, and he has a lot in, like, he's not like the best back in the world, but like he's versatile, right? He can do a lot in the run game. He could catch passes if he needs to. But he's not somebody who like can't handle goal line carries. Like, I don't really understand why Zach Moss is like the clear favorite there.
Yeah, I think that's a really great way to look at it. I was like you, kind of neutral on this backfield, but as things, all the reports come out, and you just remember the athleticism that Chase Brown has. I mean, you have the weight. He's 5'10", 210 pounds. He runs the 4.43. He had 25 bench press reps, which puts him in the 87th percentile. And you mentioned the workload in college, 328 carries his final year at Illinois. That's a ton of carries. So I like that a lot. Right now going off the board as the RB28. So somehow ahead of Javonte Williams, but I think that's, partly due to the Bengals offense.
It's gotten higher, right? Like earlier in the offseason, like you were able to get him like, RB37, RB38, right? So like this is you could tell that the camp hype is definitely having an effect here.
Yeah, I mean, because, Joe Mixon's gone. So then you got to have the pass catching running back. That's clearly going to be Chase Brown based on what we saw from him in that one screen last year that he housed. But then also there's no Tyler Boyd too. So, I mean, there's some sort of, yes, Tyler Boyd, the wide receiver, but those like short kind of safety net pass attempts from Burrow could definitely go to Chase Brown or, whoever's catching passes in that area of the field. So I think that's a fun take. I had the pleasure of going on Mind of Mansion this week with Matt, and I it hit me that this was budget Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery. I think you could kind of look at it that way a little bit. But, and as you mentioned, Chase Brown has a little bit more size than Jahmyr Gibbs too. So there might really, he has the true bell cow potential if Zach Moss goes back to old Zach Moss, not what we saw in Indy, but what we saw in Buffalo, right? So, hey, good pick. Anything else on the preseason before we move on?
I think Rico Dowdle's probably a little bit of a winner because there's a lot of there's been a lot of camp reports about him being like most likely the 1A there. So I can kind of get behind his ADP. I don't think he's talented, but I do think, relative to the NFL, not me. Okay, just
Right.
want to put that out there. I think Jaden Daniels is another one who all camp reports have been saying that he's been looking really good. So he's one of my favorite targets if I'm not able to grab like a Kyler Murray a little bit earlier. And yeah, I think those are the main guys for me. Jane Daniels is somebody that, I think can have a huge year, even as a rookie. By all reports, the passing is looking great, right? Like we all love the rushing, but if he could, give us like 3,300, 3,400 passing yards on top of like 400 to 500 yards rushing, and then on top of that, the usage in the red zone, like we saw in this past preseason game, in the run game, like we're looking pretty good.
Yeah, he's Jaden Daniels, I think, is a screaming value right now for redraft and dynasty even. Because now I know this is a hot take probably, or it's at least uncomfortable for people to say, but I mean, you could take Caleb Williams and get Jaden Daniels in a really, really nice piece right now in dynasty. And I know it's risky, but I mean, they're both rookie quarterbacks that are uber talented, and one actually has the rushing upside, a little bit more rushing upside. I know Caleb Williams has some wheels, but not anywhere near the degree that Jaden Daniels does. So I think that's a move to be making right now. Capitalize on the Caleb Williams hype. And there's still Jaden Daniels hype as well, but it's just not quite there yet. So I think you can make some money moves there. And speaking of making some money moves, we mentioned the Senior Bowl at the top of the show. We've been talking about some of these preseason guys. So maybe a sleeper, who's somebody who's a deeper sleeper you see maybe from the Senior Bowl or just in general that we need to be keeping our eye on.
Now, are we talking dynasty sleeper or are we talking redraft sleeper? Because but okay, so I think in redraft, I think Jonathan Brooks is still, being slept on a little bit in redraft because he's coming off the ACL tear. Yeah. I think people are assuming that Chuba Hubbard is going to still play a major role once he's healthy, and I don't think that's going to be the case. Jonathan Brooks is a good prospect. He's not an elite prospect, but he's a very good prospect. And I think he's going to be their workhorse at some point this season. I think second half of the season is safe to assume, but I think there's a chance that happens like week 4, week 5, week 6. I think that's very possible. Todd Gurley had a similar situation coming off of a clean ACL tear in his rookie season, and he finished as the RB8 in fantasy points per game. Last year, Breece Hall, coming off a clean ACL tear, finishes the RB8 in fantasy points per game. These guys, they had a slow start to the season. Like Breece Hall had a slow start in terms of opportunity. Then week 4, he got the full workload, right? And Todd Gurley ended up missing a couple of games. He came back and he ended up being the workhorse. So, I think Jonathan Brooks, this could be a similar situation for him. Dave Canales coming in. We saw how inefficient Rachaad White was last year, yet he finished as an RB1. Close to the RB8 also. I think it was like the RB9 in fantasy points per game last year with Dave Canales, despite him being one of the most inefficient runners, actually the most inefficient runner in the NFL last year. So because of that, I do think that, Jonathan Brooks has a lot of upside, even if this offense isn't great. At least they up the offensive line just a little bit. We'll see if, their second-year quarterback can take a step forward. But Dave Canales is the QB whisperer, right? He did it for Baker, right? He did it for Geno Smith. So maybe he can do it here, with Bryce Young.
Yeah, I love that take. I've been taking Jonathan Brooks a lot purely for the second half because I think Chuba Hubbard, he's a really, really good player to take at the end of your underdog drafts or whatever. You'll get that early season usage while Brooks is out. But the Panthers traded up in the second round to get Jonathan Brooks for a reason. They want to run the ball through him. They want to really make him a big part of this offense with a bad offensive line, with average weapons, with Bryce Young still not showing us a lot. Like, it really makes sense that they're going to try to just ride Jonathan Brooks as a pass catcher, as a runner, just get the ball in his hands when he's healthy. And I really do think that second half is going to be a big explosion. So I'm a big fan of that take. Who's a dynasty sleeper?
Jermaine Burton. Okay. I would say, Right now, obviously, Andre Yoshibas seems to have the upper hand between, with that wide receiver 3 battle behind T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. But I do think that Jermaine Burton's just a better wide receiver. And I think at some point, even this year, we could end up seeing him, Jermaine Burton taking over that wide receiver 3 role. I do think that obviously, there was a lot of off the field concerns with Jermaine Burton. I don't think it was his talent. He could have been a first round wide receiver if he didn't have those concerns. So I think as he ramps up, as he gets, more familiar with the NFL, I do think there's going to be a chance that he ends up seeing the field quite a bit, maybe in the second half of this year. And you can end up buying him now before he ends up making plays. Remember, he is attached to a very, very good quarterback, right, in Joe Burrow. So I don't know if he's going to end up playing the slot. I do think he profiles more as an outside wide receiver. But, you never know. Jamar Chase going into the slot wouldn't be something new that we've seen in the NFL. We've seen a lot of elite wide receivers move into the slot a lot more. So maybe that ends up happening. But, I think Yoshibasa is a solid wide receiver. I think he could play a role. I don't think he'll be super productive alongside those two, but I think Burton can actually push for some Tyler Boyd type of numbers, even in year 1, once he gets some opportunity.
I have not been taking much Jermaine Burton, mostly because I'm viewing him as more of the T. Higgins replacement. But the good news there is this is a dynasty buy, and T. Higgins is not going to be on the team next year. So even if it's not this year, I do kind of believe that he will kind of be the wide receiver 2 going into 2025. And that's like worst case scenario. Like you said, there is tons of potential for him to just get on fire, get on the field this year with or without an injury to Higgins, Chase, God forbid, Chase. I really hope not. But anyway, I like that. He's not too expensive right now, and he's only going to get more expensive from here. And that's generally
and the lack of camp hype. The fact that Yoshibas is winning that wide receiver 3 battle right now, I think he's an easy buy.
Yeah, I like it. That's a good one. All right, in general now, give us a buy or a sell. Number 1, you got one take here. You're selling someone or buying someone. Who would it be?
I'm buying Rashee Rice. I think, this is, he showed after week 12 last year. It was absolutely ridiculous. I actually have the numbers up here. After week 12, he ended up getting a 79% route participation. Before week 12, it was only 45%. Okay, so once he became that full-time wide receiver, 27% target share. Elite. Okay. Wow. 28% targets per route run. Elite. Overall wide receivers 7 in fantasy points per game, during that span. This is very similar to what we saw from Amon-Ra St. Brown in his rookie year towards the end of the year when Sam Laporta, when TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift were off the field and everybody was like, he only did it because those guys were off the field. So I don't think he can do it, when those guys are back, and I think that's not a good take. And the reason for that is if he wasn't good, the targets would have been way more distributed than one player getting all of it. Right? That's just how it works. So if you're a target earner, usually that sticks, right? Yeah. So I think if you have the chance to buy a target earner from Patrick Mahomes, I think you should do that. Now, I understand that the off-the-field stuff right now is happening. There's a chance that he doesn't even get suspended this year, okay? Yeah. The court dates are getting pushed back, whatever it is. The NFL hasn't even met Rashee Rice on this issue yet. Yeah. Like, to me, that seems like the NFL, isn't, super, concerned about it, super worried about it, super, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't seem like the NFL cares that much. Now, will he get a suspension eventually? I think so, right? It could be anywhere from 2 to 6 games. But even with a 6-game suspension, at some point, he's still a buy in all formats. So even the redraft, he's going really late. You can get him in the 7th round right now, which is, he has top 12 upside still, even with Hollywood Brown there, even with Xavier Worthy there. Obviously, Travis Kelce, he did it alongside Travis Kelce last year. He had a higher target share than Travis Kelce, after week 12. So that tells you what you need to know about Rashee.
Well, and I think that's kind of the Chiefs' game plan, right? Is to coast Travis Kelce until the playoffs, really get him, really make sure he's healthy for the big push to try to get that 3-peat now. So I think it's a great idea to get Rashee Rice, especially in redraft, because then you don't have to worry about the suspension. It's not happening this year. So that's a great buy. I do want to get a hot take for you, but before we get to that hot take, we do have to play a little bit of an ad break. So let's hear about this fast draft that's making some noise.
Drafting is the best part of fantasy football, and drafting fast is what Fast Draft is all about. Fast Draft is the fastest best ball app on the planet. With just 6 rounds and a 20-second time clock, you can draft in under 10 minutes. Don't have 10 minutes? Use Turbo Mode to create teams with a click of a button. We love volume players, and volume players love Fast Draft because we make it exponentially easier to max enter 150 lineups, and if a tournament you love does fill, don't worry, we'll roll out another one the next day. Fast Draft tracks player ownership in real time, so you can always see your exposure at a glance in the draft room, and there's no position restrictions. And the best part of that is you never have to draft a tight end. With only 60 players drafted, there are 2 key ways to get unique. You draft players well above or below ADP, or shake up your boosters. The boosters let you set 4 players with point multipliers up to 2x, so you can improve your chances of being unique by putting premiums on later round picks. Okay, that's what Fast Draft's all about. Now start your engines.
All right, go get that Fast Draft, guys. Faraz, you've been fast drafting?
I have, and that was a cool ad read. Matt's doing a good job with that. I think I had a few drafts. I got some, turbo entries in as well. It's been solid, man. I'm enjoying it, to be honest.
I love the turbo mode. That's my favorite because we're already
100%.
making those rankings, right? You just put those
exactly.
in, it drafts for you. It's incredible. I love just looking through my teams after I get the email saying all my orders are completed, and it's like Christmas, man. It's nice. It's really
exactly.
All right, man. I know you've got to get out of here shortly, so hit us with a hot take and then let the audience know where they can find you.
Rome Odunze finishes as the top Bears wide receiver for fantasy this year.
Yeah! God, thank you. I love that.
You do you? Okay, I like it.
Yes,
I thought I was on an island with that one.
No, I think I've got to wake and take show, so I've got to find the hot takes all the time, and that's my favorite one, honestly, because it's a friendship thing. You earn targets off the field just as much as you do on the field. And when you're both top 10 draft picks in the same rookie class, you're both doing the bear claw together, and you're that good of a wide receiver, Caleb Williams is going to look his way all the time. Love
it.
So great hot take. I love it. All right, man. Thank you so much for joining me. This was a very, very fun episode. I'd love to have you on again sometime. Again, let the audience know where they can find you and all the good stuff you're working on.
Upper Hand Fantasy on Instagram, upperhandfantasy.com. We have the Upper Hand Fantasy podcast as well. I'll see you guys soon.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jason.
Yeah, thank you, man. You have a great day. Everyone go follow Upper Hand. Find Faraz on Twitter as well. I put his link in the description, Faraz Siddiqi on Twitter. And yeah, everyone, you all have a fantastic Friday, a wonderful weekend, and make sure you tune in Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern for some more Wake and Take. Peace.